Today I want to talk about Jon Ronson's The Psychopath Test. Jon Ronson is a journalist and has been for the past few decades. He also has a couple of other books out, including Them and The Men Who Stare at Goats. Although The Psychopath Test could be seen as a collection of essays, it is actually a cohesive book. One of the ways in which Ronson creates this cohesion is that he continuously refers back to one of the first people he met in the beginning of the book. As we all know, prisons are filled with psychopaths, and one of the reasons that Jon Ronson wrote this book in the first place was because he wanted to essentially go on a journey and a bit of an odyssey to see what kind of people, namely psychopaths, exist in the corporate world. The name of the book is borrowed from a test, a cognitive test, which was created by Bob Hare, a Canadian psychiatrist. The Psychopath Test is a questionnaire, and it is meant to cognitively define, based on the kind of phraseology that a person uses, whether or not someone is or could be a psychopath. This book is actually really fascinating, and I can't say that I am totally enamored with psychopaths. I'm not the type of person that would go and read a Ted Bundy biography. I found this book to be a really great introduction to the world of psychology, and specifically the psychology of psychopaths. For those of you who don't know, Scientology is, among other things, very much against psychology. With the help of a branch of Scientology, he was actually able to access a very maximum security, no journalists allowed psychology ward called Broadmoor in the UK. There was a young fellow there who had spent the past 12 years essentially growing up in Broadmoor. When he was 17, he inflicted major bodily harm to a homeless man, and he knew that he was going to get about 5 to 7 years in prison. So what he did was he pretended to be mentally ill. He used references from popular movies at the time, such as Blue Velvet and A Clockwork Orange, and he also read up on Ted Bundy's life. Ronson mentioned that Tony didn't believe that he belonged in Broadmoor and that he wasn't actually crazy, and this of course validated the Scientologist that was helping him in that psychiatry is just a load of crap. In fact, the clinician agreed with Tony and with Jon Ronson, saying that Tony was not mentally ill, but he was a psychopath. One of the key distinctions that Ronson is able to define in the book is that a mental illness is something that can be treated and something that can actually go away with the help of cognitive therapy and medication. Psychopathy is something that is still very unknown, and for the most part we as a society and the psychological community believe that it is something that cannot be treated. It's important to note, and Jon Ronson goes ahead and mentions it himself, he is not in any way, shape, or form an expert or a psychologist. He is, however, a delightful writer. Ronson's writing is childlike and very comforting. He's so humble and humiliating to himself and so self-effacing that when you're reading it, you're thinking, okay, this is really scary stuff that he's going through, and the people that he's sitting down and meeting with are horrible, and never in a million years would I imagine myself sitting across a table from these people. And yet you feel so comforted and so secure because it's him. Basically, if this anxiety-riddled man can face the Haitian Death Lord, I think we can all get through a few hundred pages. Apart from the fascinating facts in this book, Ronson goes out of his way to make this a very humanizing story. You read about the horrible rebellion and the deaths and rapes that were led under Toto Constant's regime, and then you read about his totally placid and polite and eerily serene meetings that he has with Jon Ronson. Twice. Jon Ronson is a pretty phenomenal writer, and I think it's because he is so aware of his readership. At one point in the book, as I'm sure he was prone to do while he was researching this project, he speaks with a psychiatrist and essentially gets her to address the readers and say that if you thought throughout reading this book that you may be a psychopath and worried about it, you're probably not a psychopath. This is a great book that bridges the gap between science and story. I myself am very interested in all realms of science, but not interested enough to remember any technical terms. Luckily, other than the amygdala, which I can totally remember, there aren't any scientific terms in this book, and yet you feel like you're learning a lot. I definitely recommend this book to anybody, and I'm definitely going to be trying out any and all of Jon Ronson's other work. Thanks for watching. Bye!